Hi, and welcome to episode 6 of Bet on People. And today I have Alfred Lua with me. Alfred is a senior marketing manager at Referral Candy, a referral program app for e commerce stores. Previously, he did product marketing, content marketing, and community at Buffer. Outside of work, he has experimented with several side projects, including a paid newsletter and an e commerce store. And on top of that, he swims, cycles, and runs as a triathlete. Wow, Alfred, you have a very, very full life. I need to know how you do it all, and I hope we can cover that. But first, thank you so much for being here and tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what does a day in your life look like at Referral Candy and outside of work?
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for the introduction. My day to day it's actually very different on a daily basis. So maybe I can share a bit of like how my daily routine is like. In general, I try to keep to sort of a fixed routine because I quite like routine. But then what do I do during kind of the day changes quite a bit. So I do wake up pretty early. So I get out at 5 in the morning. I tend to go for a workout first. As a triathlete, I try to get a workout done in the morning first mostly because like it's really hot in Singapore. So I want to get out for a run and all that before the sun is up. And then I tend to spend like 9 to 6 as my work day. So it's pretty fixed. Sometimes I have, start earlier or end later, but in general, I keep to like 9 to 6 with like lunch break and tea break and all that stuff. So on a daily basis, I kind of focus on maybe three broad areas of things at Referral Candy. One is just purely the marketing work itself. So content marketing is a big part of our marketing strategy. So I spend a lot of time there. The second big bucket I think about a lot is management. So managing a team, coaching a team, doing one-on-ones and all that. And the third bucket is around hiring and like more of the future type stuff, right? Like if I want to grow the marketing team, who should I be hiring and all that? Especially how like hiring takes a long time. So I always want to start thinking way ahead before I urgently need to hire someone. So yeah, that's kind of how I spend my day to day. I would say right now it's probably like 50% more of marketing type work, and then the remaining 50% that's the other two buckets.
That's really interesting. And I think the hiring part is how I found you on LinkedIn, where you had shared this post about you talking to, I think, somebody is still in college or had just graduated college. So tell me about that. Are you speaking to people very often who are in college or who are looking to get into the industry?
Yeah, no, so I just started doing this like a while ago, just the last few months. Well, actually, before I guess COVID and all that stuff, I've been attending events to share about like my marketing experiences and all that. And then with COVID, there was no events and up to now, or in-person events. But then recently, I thought about doing like more one-on-one calls with, especially like university students, because I realized that I do have kind of a unique experience to share, given that I'm based in Singapore, but I was very lucky to have experience working for a US brand, a US company that's pretty well known in the tech industry. Um, and I've spent about 6 years there, so that gave me a lot of experience that I can share with people. And during my career so far, I've benefited a lot from people who are a few steps ahead of me sharing their experiences. And I thought like maybe it'd be helpful for me to think about sharing these experiences with people who are just a few steps behind me. Like I feel like I'm still really early in my career, and that might be what kind of information they want to hear from, right? Like even for me, I wouldn't want to hear from someone that's like 20, 30 years ahead of me, because
Yeah.
what they do is like so far away and different from what I need to know right now. And I feel like, since I'm so early in my career, college students might be very interested in hearing how, I first got into marketing, how did I get this job? Especially how like, I had no background in marketing. I studied accounting and finance, and then I got into marketing. And I feel like a lot of uni students, I know myself, I was thinking about that, like, what do I do after I graduate? And I hope just to share one unique experience can help them open up their mind to like, okay, what are different options that are available for them when they graduate and think about their career going forward.
That's commendable, and I think that that's so true. Talking to somebody who is well ahead in their career is very intimidating because I know that LinkedIn has this feature where it used to sort of match people with other people that are in the industry. Um, part of it was irrelevant because for me content marketing and media wasn't necessarily like the same thing. I mean, still in the same content board, but not necessarily what I needed to know. But the people that I was connected to, and I'm so grateful that they did, give me their time and they spoke to me, but it was so far ahead that it wasn't actionable in
Right.
for me. And that is so important, like this whole aspect of accessibility, right? Like you are more inclined to uh, be open and ask like those sort of, like, people say like these are dumb questions, but you wouldn't do that with somebody who's like so well ahead in their career, because you're just like, oh, I'm not uh, I don't feel comfortable asking this question at all. um,
Right.
and so these calls that you have, are you putting this out there saying that you can talk to me? How are people finding you and getting on these calls?
Yeah, I mean, one quick thing to add to what you mentioned as well is like, yeah, I totally agree that sometimes I struggle talking to people who are like way ahead of me. Also because like the the things that they're working on right now, where they spend their most attention on, is very different from what I'm working on right now, or like
Yeah,
the type of work that I'm thinking about. They might be thinking about like hiring and like building companies at a bigger scale, but then for me, it's more like, okay, what do juniors think about in their role? How do they develop as a junior? So I found it really helpful to talk to people who are just only a few steps ahead of me, rather than like people who are like just multiple steps
absolutely.
ahead of me.
Absolutely. And somebody said this recently, like, marketing at Facebook is so different from marketing at a startup. So somebody can
Right. Yeah.
do really well at Facebook and then come at a startup and bomb, because you require a different set of skills to be able to do this for a startup and say that, okay, we can't be doing all of this. We can't be spending all of our budget on paid. It's not going to work for us. So that's
Yeah.
another thing to, like, keep in mind, because it's just vastly different when you have a company that's already established, already spends money on marketing. You don't have to convince the CEO like, let's do this, which is what
Right.
happens at a startup. Like, okay, let's try this. If it fails, it fails, but let's at least try it.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
back to you. How are people finding you and getting on these calls with you?
Yeah, so I don't have like a very structured approach right now, but like you mentioned, I try to put out posts on LinkedIn, letting people know that I'll be interested to share about my marketing experiences, and if they are interested, they can DM me to have chat and all that stuff. I think one thing I realized is sometimes it's just really intimidating to like reach out to someone to like ask like, can I have a chat and all that.
Yeah.
One surprising pattern that I've been seeing so far talking to students is that they're really grateful for me to like spend time chatting with them. It's like, oh, thanks for taking your time to chat with me and all that. And I was like, it's just an hour a week. Like, you're not taking like a huge deal of my time. And like
Yeah.
being able to chat with students have always been very energizing for me. I was very happy to like talk to all of them. And yeah, so like I just want to make sure that people understand that it's actually not a very big ask, and I'm happy to talk to people. So I just been putting out LinkedIn messages so far to invite people to chat with me. So far, LinkedIn seems to be the best. I think mostly because like a lot of my LinkedIn followers are within the same time zone, and then they're like more open to chatting and all that. Perhaps because of like same cultural backgrounds and all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Been trying on Facebook as well. It's not. I don't think as many people um, read or think about them as much. So LinkedIn seems to be the best platform for me so far.
Amazing. And tell us a little bit more about your journey leading up to Buffer. You spent 6 years there, and you say that you didn't have any marketing experience before that. So, what got you into accounting and finance, and what made you take that decision? Okay, marketing is where I should be.
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, I was just writing a blog post about this earlier today. Like I grew up in a very entrepreneur family. So my parents have been running their own small retail shop for like the last 30 plus years. So I kind of have a very interesting childhood where, during school holidays, everyone would go enjoy themselves and all that. But then my parents would make us go to the shop and help out. You know, we don't really help out that much. Like, we just do errands like sweep the floor, buy lunch and all that stuff. But it kind of given me a very unique upbringing, and I always look up to my parents and want to start my own business eventually as well. So when I was at the point of deciding what to study for university, I thought, why don't I pick something that it's relevant to starting a business? I felt a business degree was too generic. Like it teaches you maybe management at like a bigger company or corporation, but starting a business or working at Starbucks is very different. So I was like, okay, what's the most kind of maybe useful skill that I could have? And it felt like accounting and finance is a good place, good skill to have regardless. So
Absolutely.
I do accounting and finance. Yeah. And I feel like maybe that part of that is maybe like the societal expectation in Asia about how, there are a few degrees that you should
Yep.
choose from, right? Like
Absolutely.
medicine, law, or accounting. And, I'm a very quantitative type person. Like I love mathematics, and I was like, all right, accounting seems to fit fit very nicely in that.
Yeah.
Not sure about like law and all that stuff. So yeah, I took accounting and finance, and so I went to the UK to study accounting and finance. But then like kind of when I went through the process, during the first year, I still thought maybe I would want to be an investment banker because investment banker makes a lot of money. So like why
Absolutely.
not?
Yeah.
But I'm constantly wondering like is this what I really want to do in life? Like do I want to spend my life doing investment? And I kind of slowly realized that maybe not. And where my interest was kind of lie at is actually advertising. So before I got into marketing, what really drew my attention and curiosity is advertising. I will spend hours on YouTube watching commercials, and it's kind of ridiculous people do that, but like I love watching commercials. In fact, like just before this call, I was watching a commercial on LinkedIn about I think from one of the pharmaceutical company, and yeah, I just love how you can tell a story within such a short time frame, and then
Right. I
yeah.
totally get that. I mean, I've guilty of doing that too, because there are like these amazing commercials that come out of like I think Thailand and
Right,
Japan,
right.
and
Yeah.
they're like so emotional, and then at the end they're just like selling you insurance. I mean, there's like, take your heart and rip it in pieces because it's like so emotional about. I remember there was one about like a dog and how the dog didn't really have anybody, and it was a stray dog, and someone adopted it, and it
Right.
turns out it was like a random ad for insurance, and I was like, wait, how?
Yeah.
It keeps you guessing, um,
Yeah.
but
I'm not
also
sure
like
whether those are like the best ads. Like it's one funny thing that my wife and I tend to do is whenever we go to a cinema and catch a movie, there's always ads playing at the
yeah.
start. And then we'll be guessing like, okay, which company is this ad from? Because
Yeah.
some ads nowadays are so ridiculous. Like you have just no connection of like what they're trying to tell in the video and what they're selling. I kind of subscribe to like the David Ogilvy's principle about how at the end
Yeah.
of the day, advertising is to sell product. You don't want to be too far-fetched. So like the
Exactly.
ads I love in general are those that can tell a really good story that's related to the brand and makes you want to buy the product eventually. Those are
Yeah.
the best, but it's just really hard to create such content. And whenever I see that, I love them. I just keep watching them.
I mean, Apple does a great job. Every time I watch one of their events, I'm like, oh, I need this. And I'm like, I don't need this. My brain is saying, you don't need this. And I was like, no, I need this. Because the way that they tell that story, right? It's just like, it's amazing. Even on their website, they've nailed storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. I think the cool ones are also from smaller companies where they don't have a lot of budget and they keep put together a video that Harry's promotional video was the one that went really viral and it wasn't like a heavily
Yeah.
produced video.
I
I
think,
feel I've seen
yeah.
a few startup videos as well, and like it's just amazing how if you do the storytelling well, then it just resonates with people.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if Dollar Shave was a startup at that time, but it was very early on in their business where they put out this video and just went viral because it was just the CEO. I think he was in the warehouse and he was just saying a bunch of random funny stuff. It
Yeah.
was so authentic that it just went viral.
Yeah. You're right. I think it's Dollar Shave Club and not Harry's, but yeah, Dollar Shave Club. That video is amazing. I love such videos.
So then,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching all these videos, and I was like, maybe my passion kind of lies in maybe marketing, and like that's what I'm really interested in. Like, how do you tell stories? How do you understand the psychology behind why people buy certain stuff, the emotional connection to a brand, and then kind of at the same time, I think the tech industry seems to be like really growing. This was in 2013, 2014. I would say in some sense still very early in the tech industry growth type phase, where companies like Facebook started to get more and more popular, and there are a few interesting companies coming up. And I realized, okay, maybe that is where the intersection I like to be, right? Marketing and tech. So that's kind of how I stumbled into tech marketing in general. During that time, I remember it was also when Product Hunt was launched. And there were a few communities that was getting really popular. There was Product Hunt, there was growthhackers.com, inbound.org by HubSpot. And it felt like that was the new way to do marketing for companies, right? As you're not just selling things to people and marketing it to them. You're trying to create this community around your brand and connecting people, providing a value so that when they want to buy a product, they think about you. And that's how I kind of took my first step into marketing in some sense. I felt that community is a good way to do marketing. And at that time, I was looking at a company called Buffer, and they had enormous social media following and community around the brand as well. Like people love the brand and love to engage with one another in the community. And that was kind of when I applied multiple times to Buffer to try to get a job doing community. And it kind of took a bit of work because I had, like I mentioned, no background in marketing or community. I was doing accounting, finance degree, and I haven't even graduated yet, so I was still a student back then. So I applied multiple times and rejected the first two times, and finally got hired the third time. I think what kind of really helped me in that process is I was very involved in the community already, because I felt like that was the right thing for the company to do in terms of community management, and I decided to find ways to contribute to the community. So helping to facilitate conversations, giving suggestions on how community events can be better. And I think they kind of helped me with my application because I'm not this stranger who applied. I was this person who was very actively involved, which led to my job offer eventually. Funny enough, a few of my colleagues were actually in the community before they joined the company as well, and I thought that was pretty cool.
That's amazing. And so many people don't talk about those failures, right? You applied 3 times, and the first 2 times you were rejected, but you still kept going, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not sure whether I'm weird or not, because at that time all my friends were doing things that are opposite. Well, I guess I was doing things that are opposite of what my friends were all doing, because in accounting and finance, most people want to get into a bank, and the approach of application is they will send out maybe 100 applications to big banks and small banks and all that, and then maybe 50% of them will reply, and then 20 will share your interview call, or 10% of them will go through multiple steps, and then 5 will give you a job offer. For one, I didn't really want to work in a bank, so I didn't take that approach. And then two, it's I really wanted to work for a company that I believe in, not just any company. And so, I was very intentional about looking around for companies that I really want to work at, and perhaps spend a few years there, which turned out to be what I did. I was at Buffer for almost 6 years because it was a company I really believe in, and so I knew that I had to try multiple times, if I really want to get it, and thankfully I got it in the end.
That's amazing. And being intentional with your job search, I think that is something that a lot of people don't do because they're like, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm just gonna apply to every job on LinkedIn. They don't take the time to personalize their resume or even add a cover letter. I mean, I'm still 50-50 on the whole cover letter thing, whether you should send one or not. But I think
Yeah.
that you providing value even before you go through the entire interview process, I think that's something that will help you stand out, right? If you could if you are applying to the content marketing uh, role, then I think it would be great if you could take a look at the strategy and be like, hey, you guys are doing great, and here are 3 things that I feel like would be great tweaks that you could
Yeah.
apply, like quick fixes. And I think that just instantly makes you stand out as an candidate. But people have that spray and pray sort of mentality. We're like, okay, I'm just gonna like apply to like a bunch of different jobs. I'm gonna see who calls me back. But it's in a way it's also understandable, because if you start looking for a job at the end of college, then you're just eager to get any job, right? Any
Right.
company that will have you. But you started your journey a little bit before, right? When you were still studying, and you still had that element of time. Okay, I have time. If this doesn't work out, I can still have something else. So what was plan B if, say, marketing and tech hadn't worked out? What was plan B for you?
Yeah, I guess the funny thing is I didn't have a plan B, and that's why I was like,
Oh my God,
I need
that's
to
such a
try.
that's such a Kanye West moment. You know what? What would you do if you didn't win? I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, no, so I guess you're right. Like how a lot of people sort of waited to near the end of their college to think about applying for jobs and all that. And I don't think that's wrong entirely. I think like people who
Absolutely.
really enjoy themselves during the university time, like probably had more fun than I did, really enjoying the college life to the fullest. I was maybe too eager to get started working, and I was really looking around by the second year of my college. So I had a 3-year degree, and I think perhaps the circumstances are different as well. So I think a lot of my friends were applying to big corporations, and for big corporations, the jobs are in some sense always there. Like they're always hiring people, hiring multiple people for the
Yeah.
same role and all that. And I wanted this very specific role in this very specific company. And I was like, if I don't apply now, I might never get the chance to do it again. And so, that's why I started applying early. And I think that gave me a bit of advantage because I wasn't in a rush. I didn't have
Yeah.
like just 3 months
Exactly.
to make sure I get a job. I had like an entire year to do it. And that kind of gave me that time to like slowly apply multiple times and get rejected without worrying that I have to find another job immediately. And so like that gave me maybe more confidence not to have a plan B. It's like
Yeah.
I have a full year ahead of me to try this, and like
Exactly.
worst come to worst, like maybe I'll think of something else when I get there. But like for now, I just want to put in like my best effort to get this job, and see where it brings me.
It's amazing. And what was the hiring process like for you at Buffer when you finally went through the process? It's a remote uh, job, right? So
Mm.
was that something that made you want to get the job more, or did you want to sort of have like that whole in-office type of experience?
Yeah, so back then my circumstances was I was studying in the UK for about 3 years, and my girlfriend back then was based in Singapore, so just studying locally, and we kind of went through 2 to 3 years of long distance relationship, and so like wasn't sure like if we should extend it further, because it's just really hard to do long distance relationship in general. And I always wanted to work for a cool startup. And back then, the ecosystem in Singapore wasn't that developed yet. I think now it's a lot better with the tech startup in Singapore. So a few options I was considering is like, okay, maybe I can find a cool startup to work for in London. There's a lot of cool startups back then already in London. But that would mean extending my long distance relationship with my girlfriend, and now wife. So this whole remote idea just was really kind of enticing to me because it's the best of both worlds, right? Like I get to move back to Singapore, but also get to work with incredible people like all around the world. And back then, remote work was still not that prevalent thing. That was in 2015, and the funny story is that my parents actually didn't believe I have a proper job because
I
it's
was
like
gonna ask you that. I was gonna ask you that same question, because I was like, how do you convince your parents that you have an actual job because you're still at home?
Yeah. So that's the question they always ask me. Like, you're always at home. Like, when are you ever going to go to work? I'm like, I am working, and I think the only time the first step they took is realizing that I was giving them allowance, and they're like, all right, maybe he's making some money, and then kind of maybe unfortunately is when the whole COVID situation hit and everyone had to work from home, and then they realized like, all right, actually a lot of work can be done at home right now, and you're into remote work.
It's amazing. So, when you get to Buffer and you start with community, then you moved on to content marketing and product marketing, was that like an organic progression for you?
Yeah, so progression is an interesting word because I guess that signifies kind of in some sense like an upward trajectory. For me, moving from community to content to product marketing was more like a lateral move, where I wanted to explore different parts of marketing, and it was kind of mostly organic. So I was doing community management for Buffer in my first year, and that was when I was still in the UK. When I moved back to Singapore, it was just a bit harder to do community management because most of our customers were in the US or Europe, UK, and it's just really odd hours for me. And my manager kindly asked me if I'm interested in maybe writing for the blog. I guess it helped that I have been writing and publishing on my blog way before I joined the company,
Yeah.
and perhaps that gave my manager some trust that like maybe I can do content marketing. Uh, and he gave me a lot of hand holding at the start, thinking about all right, what kind of, I think right from the start, he gave me a few ideas on what to write instead of asking me to just come up with articles myself, right? He was like, why don't you try exploring this topic or that topic? And we'll work through maybe an outline first, and then I'll do a first draft, and then he'll comment and give me feedback all the way to publishing it. Um, and it was just a really cool experience because like, Buffer was such a giant in content marketing back then. There were like 1 million people reading our blog every month. And having my articles published there is a huge honor. But it's just really scary. Like I have so much imposter syndrome during that 2 years, writing content for Buffer. But yeah, so like that move was a bit more, I guess like semi-organic in that like my manager encouraged me to think about like content marketing. And also because I guess we needed more people to write content within the team as well. So I happened to have some of the skill set to do that. And then so I did content marketing for 2 years and I grew bored of it. And I was wanting to explore different things as well. Oh, well, again. And kind of coincidentally, the team started, like my manager and the team started thinking about product marketing as a role to explore further because the product and marketing team tend to be pretty separate. Like, they work in silos and we didn't really have a good bridge in between the two teams. And we're starting to think like, okay, maybe product marketing could be a good role to bring the two teams together. And again, like he asked me if I was interested, and I said I was interested. I think thankfully, content marketing gave me a lot of the knowledge to move into product marketing because
Yeah.
I've been writing content for such a long time, so my writing was kind of like okay. And then with content marketing, I think about like writing emails, writing social media stuff, and all these are kind of foundational skills to product marketing. Because in product marketing, you have to think about like product announcements and preparing a product launch and all that stuff. So I kind of had a bit of that skill to move into product marketing. And then, yeah, so I kind of move into product marketing, try to learn as much as possible on the job. And, through a few iterations of like running different product campaigns and product launches, I managed to learn more and more things about product marketing. And yeah, so kind of that was what the process that I went through.
That's amazing. And you're right. With content marketing and you do content marketing right, you have a lot of the foundational skills that you will need to become a product marketer. Because if you are talking to customers like you should in any department in
Right.
the marketing team, and you are looking at the product because you got to understand the product that you're writing for. Otherwise, if it's like very technical, if there's like a bunch of like, these APIs and SDKs and you don't know what it actually does, then
Right.
it's that much more difficult to like convince the reader that hey, this is what our product does. Because if you don't know, then you can obviously tell other people. So
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out like when did you start writing blogs for yourself? Was that when you were still in college, or was it when you just started working at Buffer?
Yeah, there's another fun story to that is one of the weekends while still studying, my friend just, we went out for a jog and my friend was like, why not we go Paris this weekend? And it's like, oh, cool, let's do that. And, we're in the UK, so going to Paris was like a short trip and it's possible. So we being kind of students who wanted to save money as much as possible. So we booked a bus to Paris, and I think it was like an 8-hour bus ride from London to Paris. And we're late to the bus interchange, and we didn't really get to choose our seats, so we kind of just sat separately on the bus. And I so happened to sit beside a designer who has written for many popular magazines, online publications like Smashing Mac, and you know over like maybe, yeah, the 8 hours bus journey, he kind of convinced me that I should be writing online. And I remember saying, I'm no experience, I have no expertise. Like, what do I write about? Like, would people care about reading? And he is like, there's definitely something you are interested in. Just write about that. And
Yeah.
that was kind of the trigger point for me to like, all right, maybe I should try this writing thing online. So when I got back to my college hall, I started researching online about, how do I start a blog? How do I buy a domain? I think so. I remember that year was the year I bought my domain, like alfredlua.com, and I think that was like the best investment that I've done back then, especially since I was a student and using my pocket money to buy the domain, and then I had to buy. I think I bought 3 years of hosting on Bluehost, and that was like
Yeah.
$300. And like for me, that was like a lot of money. But then looking back now, it's like, oh, it's such a good investment
Such
because
a good
I,
investment. Yeah,
right, yeah, and like
absolutely. Yeah.
the website has been following me for the last 8 years, and it's helped me so much in my career. And so back then, I was like, what is something I'm interested in, and I could maybe write about. And back then, even until now, I was really interested in startup marketing. How do startups do their marketing? How do you get your first users and all that stuff? So I started sharing some opinions on different startups marketing. I think one of my friends were starting a local startup in Singapore back then. So I kind of wrote some stuff about like, oh, what they should be thinking about, what should they try. I think WhatsApp was getting popular back then as well. And I think WhatsApp was known to like have not done any marketing at all. So I was trying to write about that. And just trying to write a lot of different ideas. I mean, I'm sure they're terrible right now. So if you're going to read them, I don't know. I would even recommend reading them really. But it's kind of like the start of this entire like journey, which is getting me to write. And I really enjoyed the entire process of writing about marketing. It's been 8 years since then, and I'm still writing about marketing on my blog. I try to publish once a week now, and yeah, I do feel like it's one of the things that I'll try to keep doing as much as possible because it's just been such helpful in my personal growth as well.
That's amazing. I mean, the fact that 1 8 hour bus ride sort of changed the trajectory of your life. I mean, I don't think that we think of these moments as much, but there are certain triggers and certain people that kind of it's like if you've played carom, right? Like
Mm,
you hit the striker and then everything sort of disperses, but then because of the angles, like they just move in a different
right.
direction. Or I should have said pool. Why did I say carom? Pool is pool is
Karen
better.
works as well.
Yeah, I don't think people outside of Asia might know what carom is though. So pool. I mean, for
Right, fair enough.
for everybody who doesn't know carom, it's actually the same thing with pool, right? You
Mhm.
you hit it and it goes in all different directions, and when it hits the wall, it moves in a completely different direction as it used to. I mean, that's amazing. Um,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely right. That's the best investment you could have made in yourself. And that is so important. Investing in yourself as a student or as a working professional, and you continue doing that. Because if you're not doing that, then it's very easy for somebody else to, sort of replace you, because none of
Mm,
us are sort of indispensable. So you've got to keep growing, and you've got to keep, I mean, you have to be your number one cheerleader, and which
right.
also means investing in yourself. And maybe that's time, maybe that's money, but that has to be done. So, does the website then give you the idea to start a paid newsletter? When did that happen?
Yeah. So the website, well, so working on a website kind of set the foundation in general in terms of like giving me the confidence to write. Like maybe one thing I share is I had a really terrible command of English growing up. I hated English exams. I hated reading. I think there was maybe like a 10-year period where I've not read I had not read a single book during that period of time because I just hated English that much. And um, I was just speaking very broken English as well. So that gave me like almost no confidence in writing. And kind of the funny thing is, even up to now, I'm still afraid of any exams that require me to write essays, even though I've been publishing so much. And so writing on my blog slowly built up my confidence that I can share a perspective that people are interested in. And it's okay to write and nobody wants to read, it's fine. I feel like I'm the first person to benefit from any of my writing, because just writing it has helped me learn something new.
Absolutely.
So yeah, having that confidence made me explore different ideas. And so one publication that I follow a lot is Strictactory by Ben Thompson. He do analysis about business and strategy in the tech world, and he created this entire new business model of people subscribing for your content. In the past, content is always free, like blog posts are always free. But I created this model of just $10 a month, you get I think daily analysis of the tech world, and he does really good in-depth analysis as well. So that gave me I guess that inspired me to explore the idea. I was like, okay, maybe I can try something like that on the side to see if I can make some money. And so I decided on writing about product and marketing of different tech companies. I call it the publication Yeti Distro. And so I was selling subscription for $5 a month. You every week you get one paid article and one free article. I think at its peak, there was about 30 subscribers. So it kind of covered my initial cost of setting everything up. And actually, this project was the first time I made money on the internet on my own. And it's just amazing, right? Because for the
Amazing.
first few weeks, I was just writing content and publishing it. Nobody was reading it, and nobody was talking about it. And then one day when I was cooking, I received an email from Stripe, and it's like, this person paid $50 for annual subscription. I was like,
Oh
oh
my
my god, this is
God.
real now. And it's just I still save that email because I love it, and I think I will never forget it.
Yeah.
But so the funny thing is initially I had two plans that people can sign up for. It's like $5 a month, or if you pay for it annually, you get $50. You pay $50 a month, so count $10
$10
discount.
off, yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting people to go for the annual plan really, but then the very first subscriber went for the annual plan, maybe because $50 was too cheap. So I should probably rethink the pricing. But also the fact that he paid for annual plan meant that I have an obligation to write for a year. And it kind of
No.
dawned on me. I was like, oh no, I have to keep on this project for a year. And in some sense, that was good motivation for me to keep writing. And in the end, I wrote for about 6 months and decided to pause the project and kind of refunded people who paid me annually. But initially, that was kind of a motivation for me to keep going. And because it was taking a lot of effort to publish 2 articles a week on top of full-time job, and having that motivation of someone paying you to read your articles was really helpful to make sure that I publish regularly. Yeah, so it was a really fun experience, and it in some sense it gave me more confidence in myself as well. As I managed to make some money online, and that was just a really cool experience.
And the people are paying you to write content, which, like you said, most content is ungated. I mean, even if it is gated, you're only looking to get people's email.
Mm,
Unless, I mean, that's what you do, which is you sell reports and those
right.
kind of things. How long did it take you to get to that first subscriber, from the moment that you started your newsletter to the first subscriber, as in the
Yeah,
first paid subscriber?
I think it's probably a month. So I probably published 8 articles before I had my first subscriber. I think what really helped me is that I already had a good number of following on Twitter. So when I started this new project, I was sharing on Twitter regularly, and initially I was kind of really quiet, nobody really cared. And by a month, I think people started paying attention to it, and maybe because I was writing more and more interesting stuff, and then I had my first subscriber. Then
So is Twitter like your playground? Like, I think it is for a lot of people, where they use Twitter to test out new ideas, see if people are interested, and then they decide, okay, if let's say 500 people like this tweet, this is good enough to turn into like a video and more content. So is it is Twitter your playground?
Yeah, I wish I have a more like I think so structurally about it, but no, not really. Like for me, it was mostly I wanted to try it, and then I just went for it. And I think it was also helpful that the barrier of entry is much lower now. Like I
Yeah.
was using Ghost to do the publication and newsletter, and you know they made it really easy for you to set up a blog, and people can subscribe to it and pay for your content. I think I set up in like one afternoon. And so just really low bar. Like I had almost no excuse to try this thing,
Yeah.
and kind of tried it. I think where Twitter came in is just helping with that distribution. I think it was really helpful because most project will have a cold start, right? Like where do you start telling people about it? You know, you could
Yeah.
run ads, but then that could cost you some money. So Twitter so far has been like one of the best places for me to think about reaching other people. Not so much about like testing ideas. It's more, I guess I would probably use it to test ideas, but so far it's been helpful just to tell people about my new projects. I think Twitter is like at least people who follow me seem to be pretty open to like trying new stuff and checking out my new projects and all that stuff. So it's just been nice to share my ideas on Twitter, and then people, some percentage of my followers would think about subscribing or checking out my new project, and that's really cool.
And how long were you on Twitter for before you announced that, hey, I have this paid newsletter, do you want to subscribe?
Yeah, I think I first joined Twitter in like 2013, and I was just tweeting random stuff, really. And so it's I did a newsletter last year, so I guess I was there like maybe a good 7 years before. Like right now at this stage where I could tweet something and some people would find it interesting. I think what really helped me as well is I was doing content marketing at Buffer for a while, and because a lot of people were reading a Buffer blog, I gained a lot of followers during that time, and mostly people who are interested in marketing, which is kind of the people that I want to hang out with. So that's been really cool. Like I think a lot of my followers are into marketing as well, and also because I always share about marketing experiences and all that stuff. A lot of my followers are marketers, and the publication I was writing about it's also marketing related. So when I share it, kind of resonated with them. It kind of helped because I think like together.
Sorry, I think I kind of you broke up a little bit, but hopefully your side kind of got that. Um, it's okay.
Yeah.
We'll. I think I heard up to the point where you said that it sort of resonated with people because you already at Buffer and you're talking about marketing experiences, and your newsletter was about marketing, and then kind of sort of broke up.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Should
how?
I just repeat that?
I'm sure if you want to. I'm sure we got that on your end, but if you want to repeat that, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. So yeah, I was on Twitter. Well, I started Twitter on like 2013. So by the time I started talking about my publication, it was like 7 years since I started tweeting, and so like it took a really long process of like building up the following on Twitter. And I think it helped that I was doing content marketing at Buffer, so I was writing about social media marketing, and I gained a lot of followers during that time who are interested in marketing. And I also sharing about marketing type stuff on Twitter. So the people who follow me are mostly about interested in my marketing experiences. So when I started tweeting about Yeti Distro and like the marketing articles that I'm writing, it resonated with them. And I think that makes it really easy because like everything kind of fit in nicely where I'm writing about marketing, they're interested in marketing, and I have this new project about marketing, and they wanted to jump on it.
It's amazing. And is it that Twitter was the only platform that you distributed your content on? Were you active on other platforms simultaneously?
Yeah, I say Twitter was the most active. Like I was on Twitter the most. I was sharing a bit on LinkedIn as well, but I would say Twitter had the best reach for me in terms of like getting engagement and getting people to subscribe. Yeah, but I try to post more on LinkedIn nowadays. It seems pretty good as well. So I might just try with these two platforms for now.
So, is it fair to say that you should concentrate on one platform, grow your following, and then move on to like a different platform? or would you recommend that people try different kinds of platforms, sort of be active on different kind of platforms? Because uh, for example, um, YouTube is great for like evergreen content and more visual stuff.
Mm,
um, and then Instagram, you've got like high quality pictures and you've got reels, so like all of that.
mm,
So there's different types of formats of content resonate with like different people, right? So
right.
would you recommend staying on one platform, growing that following, or being active on like multiple platforms, like taking that one piece of content and repurposing it for all other platforms?
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I think it might be different for like personal brand and companies brand, because for for companies and I mean individuals and companies are very different. So like me, I can start personal brand where like I don't really have a strategy. I kind of just choose the platform that I'm most interested in. And Twitter has benefited me for many years. Helped me get my job, and I think the effect has compounded over time, where like the more time I spend on Twitter, the more reach I get, and like the easier it is to connect with people and all that. And then I think Instagram is just really hard because I'm lazy to take photos. I'm terrible at taking nice photos and all that stuff. So it takes a lot of effort just like publish on Instagram. So I kind of use Twitter very often, and then LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one that I'm trying to use more and more often now because it seems to be a pretty good place to connect with like-minded people as well. People are there for more professional like content. So Twitter and LinkedIn so far. I believe we might have even met on LinkedIn, right? Because I posted
Yeah,
something and then we joined
exactly.
and connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool. So yeah, I will probably publish more. I think for me, the way I think about it is if I'm seeing some returns are probably not the right word, but like if I'm seeing some impact from sharing on Twitter and LinkedIn, then I'll probably like keep doing it. And as time goes, it gets even better and better. But then on the other hand, I feel like for brands, it's very different because you first want to think about like where your customers are,
Hmm.
and what is the best platform for you to be on. So depending on the industry, like if you're a software company, maybe Twitter is the best place to be because a lot of tech people are there. But if you're an e-commerce company, then probably Instagram and TikTok even because that's where people are going to look at products or find out new cool stuff, and then they might want to buy from there. Uh, you know, uh, Once they see the product on Instagram, they might want to buy it. So I think first thing to consider is like where's the best place your customers will choose to hang out, and then choose the platforms accordingly.
But should you ask yourself that question even when you're trying to build a personal brand? For example, if like I want to talk about careers and I want to talk about getting hired, so I obviously know that LinkedIn is the place to be in. Um, but
Mm,
at the same time, I want to reach other people, right? People who
right,
are not necessarily working professionals. Maybe they're in college or they're still trying to figure out what they should do, uh, in terms of like what should they study in college, right? So I've
right.
sort of stretched myself too thin in that there's Instagram. I set up like a Twitter
Mm,
account. Not doing anything on Twitter right now, on the Bet on People account, and
mm,
on or on LinkedIn. But then now there's Clubhouse. So obviously, I feel like I'm being stretched in
right.
all like these different directions, and I'm trying to figure out where the audience is. Like, where should I be talking to them? But I think it should also, like what you said, it should be about where do I spend most time. So it's easier for me to
Mm,
sort of build that following. And once you do that, once you have that engagement, then I think it's easy to do that cross-platform thing, right? Because they'll follow you from one platform to the other. Because there's obviously an overlap between people that follow the Instagram and people that have joined the club on Clubhouse. So that's there. Um, and when you are building your personal brand, right? When you were doing Twitter, were you only talking about marketing, or were you also talking about your other hobbies like triathlons and all of that? Because again, like it's said that you should pick a niche and just keep posting about that niche. So does that
yeah.
sort of feature where you also talk about some personal stuff or your hobbies?
Yeah. So I think there are two school of thoughts here. Like I think some people kind of, like you mentioned, recommend just speaking in niche and just talk about that because people might more likely follow you because they want to hear you talk about this area and all that. Some people just tweet whatever they like because that's their style. I kind of am the latter, where I prefer to just tweet anything I like because uh, I don't know. I think in some sense, the people that I want to connect with are people who I hope would kind of appreciate who I am as a whole, not just tweeting about marketing stuff. I think maybe one of the cliche thing is happening on Twitter recently is how, like, everyone just tweeting marketing advice or like one-liner marketing advice, and sometimes those are really good, and I've liked many of those content before. But I think for me, I really want to hear like personal stories and personal experiences, right? Like, how did this person do marketing in this way, or like how did this brand do marketing this way, or what some of the challenges they faced while they're running the teams and all that stuff. I kind of prefer like people who are sharing content about themselves, like their perspective, like, I tried this and failed and all that. And that's kind of why I love writing on my blog and sharing my experience as well, because those are the content that I want to read. I want to read about how different people are going their lives and like trying marketing or different things in their career. And a lot of that kind of one-liner marketing advice is so generic that it's not that helpful, and it doesn't provide any context into your work at all. And so I lean more towards the side of like, I want to share my experiences that are unique, and hopefully people can learn from. So I tend to tweet a wide variety of stuff. I do kind of maybe lean mostly towards marketing because that's what I do anyway, and that's what I think about a lot of times. So most of my tweets, if you see, will be around marketing related stuff, and that's what I'm interested in anyway. I do kind of once in a while tweet about random stuff if I feel like it. I do feel like Twitter is more of where I um, share about my personal, or I guess like my professional career in general, like my marketing experiences and all that stuff. So I guess that's kind of the team that I follow on Twitter.
That's amazing. So you went from Buffer to Referral Candy, and I'm sure when you were interviewing at Referral Candy, the entire experience that you had at Buffer played a huge part in, and plus all of the other things that you were doing, the paid newsletter, your own website. But do you think that the hiring process is geared towards people that don't necessarily have an experience or a background in marketing?
Yeah, so I think it varies. I mean, depending on like the company you apply for and all that. I think for me, I was quite lucky in the sense that my friend recommended me to Referral Candy CEO, so I kind of skipped that application process and got into started right with chatting with the CEO and then talked to like head of product, head of design, and all that. And for me, it was kind of the interesting thing is at Buffer, I wasn't really managing people. I was in an individual contributor role. And then the new job was kind of, it requires more management type. It's kind of a more managerial role because the role is kind of head of marketing. And so in some sense, the company was taking a bet on me to see if I can make that leap from being an individual contributor to a manager. And I think that's the kind of really interesting part where, I didn't really have experience or background in that per se on paper, but then through the interviews and kind of conversations with the CEO and the rest of the team, they were, I guess, maybe happy enough with like my experiences and the things that I was sharing with them during the interview that they're willing to kind of take a bet on me to take that lead at the company.
It's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. And that's exactly what happened with me when I was sort of looking at jobs in content marketing, and uh, my company took a bet on me because I didn't really
Mm,
have any experience or a degree or anything like that.
right.
And it's sort of played into our hiring philosophy as well. I think it was the hiring philosophy even before I joined, which is you
Mm.
value will over skill, and that's what we look for. Is that something that you also look for at Referral Candy? Have you been part of the hiring process where you take a look at somebody's resume and then be like, okay, let's see if this sort of works out?
Yeah, so I've been involved in hiring in different ways. So I think back when I was in Buffer, I was not in charge of hiring, but we get to be involved in the hiring process because like we're either hiring marketing team members or like we're hiring a new marketing manager. And so I think it depends on the role that we're hiring for as well. More senior roles, like we have certain fixed expectations of what they've done before and their experiences and skill set. And then for more juniors role, we kind of have maybe a bit more, we look at a broad scope of what people have done before. I think personally for me, now I'm starting to think about hiring a referral candy as well. And I'm mostly hiring more junior type roles for now. And for me, I think I don't look so much on like their just like on their resume what the things that they've done or like the schools they've been to or the things they've studied and all that. And I think especially in marketing, what I care a lot about is like the hands-on experience. And it doesn't have to be I've worked for this and that company and done this incredible stuff, but it's like whether people are willing to just get their hands dirty and try things out themselves, right? Like have you set up a website yourself before? Do you write regularly? Have you just play around with different ad manager and run ads before? And I think especially in a junior role where people are perhaps like new to marketing, but then I kind of required to know a broad range of like different type of stuff, even at a basic level. That's kind of what I look for is like whether people are willing to try out different things. I think especially with marketing is that there's always new tools and platforms coming out. You want people who are able to adapt quickly or like just jump into a thing and figure out themselves. And having that hands-on experience of like just trying things is really valuable for like junior marketers to pick skills up. Especially for me, if I think about hiring someone junior, I think what I care about a lot is their potential to grow in their role and not just like, I don't hire someone expecting that they are just good at this thing right away and they just do the same thing forever. It's like,
Yeah.
I hire someone who's really interested in marketing and want to learn as much as possible. And sometimes I'm kind of describing myself because like, when I first joined Buffer, I had like no marketing experience, but I was really eager to learn and people were willing to take a bet on me and, teach me stuff. And I was learning a lot of things. And that's kind of like the people I'm looking for now, where like people who are, no, they might not have formal experience in marketing, but they're really interested in learning stuff and um, have showed that they've done things before on their own and are willing to learn. I do feel like those people can grow really quickly as junior marketers, and those are kind of people I'm excited to work with because they know that there's so much to learn and they're willing to learn.
That's amazing, and that hunger to learn is what drives great marketers. Because somebody who would think that, oh, I have this degree and I'm qualified, may not be as hands-on or willing to get their hands dirty, because there's used to like set processes, whereas when you come in and you're very new, and say that this like a particular company doesn't necessarily have a marketing team, then you have to set those processes. I mean, there's nothing really that you can just blindly follow. That's amazing,
Right.
and that's what we
Yeah.
also sort of look for as well. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no. So one thing I'll add as well, it's also very special in like startups in general as well because in big companies you might have formal training processes, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
every month or every quarter, the company will bring someone to like give you a tutorial about this thing and learn about new stuff. But at a startup, many startups don't have that system or like can't afford just hiring someone to give you training, especially if you're like a small marketing team or maybe just a single marketer. And so being able to like learn things on your own is really important because you don't have someone to be forcing that kind of education on you. And so you want someone who is passionate and curious to kind of learn things on their own. I think you mentioned earlier how like we are responsible for our own learning and development, and just having that curiosity to learn stuff is just so important.
Yeah, and I think I also saw this post on LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is where I go to like learn new
Yeah.
stuff. Where it said that your manager or your mentor can probably guide you and tell you, hey, that these are the skills that you need to learn, and these are the
Mm.
places where you might be able to acquire them. But you still are responsible for your own growth and your learning, because it's it's not going to come from anywhere else, and you know yourself the best, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing content marketing, if I want to make the move to social media, then I know that, because to somebody else it might look like it that I would make a better uh, fit as a, let's say, a product marketer, because I've been doing content marketing for 3 years now. So for me right now, I think it would be important to say that, hey, I think I'm interested in social media instead. So how about you help me figure out how to crack social media? So it has to do with that. And I think I saw this on one of your posts where you talked about a career Venn diagram. Is that something that you can use to figure out what's the next step in your career or what you should be doing?
Yeah. So I just published a blog post on my blog with talking about this career Venn diagram where so there are three circles in this Venn diagram. The first one is what does the company need? The second circle is what are you good at? And then the third circle is what do you want to do? And this kind of Venn diagram has actually guided me through my career at Buffer, switching different roles, and even now at Referral Candy. The sweet spot is right in the middle, right? Where, what the company needs is what you're good at and what you want to do. But most people are not always like right in the middle. They tend to be maybe in the intersection of what the company needs and what they're good at. And that's why they're hired to do the job in the first place. But, if you don't enjoy that work, eventually you'll feel miserable. And, a good example is, I was bored of content marketing at Buff after 2 years. But thankfully, I chatted with my manager and had the opportunity to move into product marketing. The second scenario is where people are in the intersection of what the company needs and what they want to do, but they don't have the skill set for that. Like you mentioned, like I want to go into a different area and all that. And then the option there is to really find a way to get better at that. Sometimes the company will provide the training, or your manager can provide the training for you. But like I mentioned, maybe we need to do it ourselves, right? We need to go and figure out how to learn the things that we want to do to become good, so that we can move into the right place in the Venn diagram. And then finally, the last one is, you are good at what you want to do, but it's not what the company needs. And then that is not a really good place to be in, because like you might want to consider moving to another company where your skill set is more valued. And I used this during my 6 years, 5+ years at Buffer to think about what a different role I want to move into. And I think for me, one of the key things is really understanding what does the company needs. And that plays a big part, because like if that's not something that, like if the thing you want to do is not what the company wants, then there's no point really trying to pursue that. Like switching to another company is more important. But then for me, it's if you understand what a company is, especially as startups, like there's so much needs, right? Because there's just not enough people to do everything. There's always something that needs to be done, and being able to understand like what's most important for a company and matching that with like what you're good at and what you want to do tends to be kind of a good formula to make sure that you're learning things as much as possible and as quickly as possible.
It's amazing. I mean, that's a great sort of guiding principle, and I'm gonna make our video editor drop that Venn diagram here and also link to that post. Um,
Yeah, cool.
and it makes complete sense, right? Sometimes you might have a chat with your manager and they say that, hey, we need somebody in this team, are you interested? But I think it's also you realizing that, oh, I think the company needs this and I'm good at this, or I want to learn this, so how do I get there? Which is amazing. So is there anything that you'd like to share with people that are just starting out or don't know where to sort of begin their journey? Do you have any sage advice, like those one-liners that you kind of hate?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can keep it to one line, but I think like maybe one thing I'll share is just don't be afraid to like start something or like try something. I think the first time is always the hardest to like try anything. And I'm trying to practice this myself of like, just trying a new ideas and all that. Because like once you take the first step, it's a lot easier to do the remaining steps. And that's when you learn things the most as well. I think in the past, I was always falling into like analysis paralysis, where I feel like I have to think through this entire thing. And I think it's something maybe schools taught us in the past as well. Like, I've always joined like entrepreneurship classes and all that. And what's the first thing they make you do? Come up with a business plan for the next 5 to 10 years. And you'll be thinking about like, all right, how do I run this business for the next 5 to 10 years? But like, I don't have any idea how to start a business. Like, how do I even think 5 to 10 years later, right? And so I think at least that was how my school was like. And I was brought up in this way where I have to like think through everything before I start, right? Like I have all the
Yeah.
right pieces and all that. But I slowly learned that, you just gotta like try and see how it goes. Like you don't have to like plan everything right away. Like in some sense, you can't really plan for like the rest of your life as well. At least in my opinion, like, or maybe you'll make a very boring life if you just plan like, okay, what I'm gonna do now till I'm 60 years old. Some people can do that. If you know what you're really passionate about, then that's great. I guess for me, it's like I know that I've switched around for different roles and all that, and just being willing to have that flexibility is great as well. So I, even for marketing, I just jump into the first thing that seemed fun to me and I want to learn. And then I wasn't worried about like, okay, would this be some useful skill that I can use 5 years from now? Or just like, I'm interested in this, let's give it a try and see how it goes. And the thing is, if you can learn quickly, you can then decide, is this the thing that you really want to do more or you want to change? Like for me, I picked up content marketing and SEO in about like 2 years. It's like not a long time in terms of like the entire career. And then I could quickly make a decision of like, do I want to do this more? Or do I switch to another area? And so I feel like there's always the option to like switch things around and change. I think you have a podcast episode on that, right? About how someone was going to different roles. And
Yeah.
so I would say like there often is the option to switch around and try different things. So don't be afraid to kind of jump in and see how it goes. I think the worst thing is, regretting not starting at all because you never know how it play out for you. So kind of maybe a cliche-ish sage advice.
No, we love cliches on Bet on People. We love that. Not because I think you can take it as it is and it applies to you no matter where you are in your life. But I think the if I'm remembering this correctly, right, like the first law of motion is like if something is in a state of motion or a state of rest, it continues to be that way. I hope it's the first law, because if it's not, all of the
Yeah, it
years of
is.
studying science are for naught. And you basically have to get over that inertia, right? Like you have to make a move, and once you do that, I think it sort of evolves organically, and that's such a great example. Like how do I know what I want to do for the next 5-10 years? Right? You're just figuring it out. It's like in a video game where like the graphics build as you progress in the game, which
Right.
again sort of brings back to my whole obsession with the simulation theory that we are living in a simulation. Um,
Living in a simulation, right?
yeah. Yeah, but it sort of makes sense. Like, I started this as a newsletter, and I realized that I think that a newsletter isn't going to be enough. I need to do a podcast. And the podcast was like, oh, wait, I think I need to also add a visual element, because then YouTube, because it's evergreen. And now I'm figuring out, okay, maybe Clubhouse, because there needs to be a community. And this whole aspect of mentorship, like you said in the beginning, right, that's so important to me, and I wish I had that when I was starting my journey. Now I do. I mean, there's like an amazing network that I've found on LinkedIn and obviously at my company, and it helps me stay in that constant state of learning. And which brings me to my last question, which is, if somebody were to reach
Right.
out to you, what's the best place that they could do that? And what would you like to talk about? Do you want to talk about your triathlons? Do you want to be talking about your productivity? Because I feel like your time management skills are on point. I mean, the way that you go about your entire day is amazing. So what's the best place they can reach you, or should they visit your website instead?
Yeah, no, my website is a good place to start. You can find all the different places to connect with me on my website. So alfredlaw.com is a good place to start. Or feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter as well. So if you want to, send me a message on Twitter, that'd be great. I would love to chat about, marketing experiences in general, or, anything career or anything interesting that they're working on as well. I feel like, you know, everyone has kind of a passion or the project that I'm working on. And it's always interesting to hear about that unique experiences, right? Like I mentioned earlier, I'm always curious to hear about all the different projects people are working on. Even though I'm in marketing now, in the future, I might explore other areas. So it's always cool to learn about all the different things that people are working on.
It's amazing. Thank you so much, Alfred. And to those of you that are listening and watching, this is your bi weekly reminder to bet on people.